That's both strange and touching, though I couldn't tell if the singer was talking about his actual mother or to a girl he likes to call Mama. That's All is a lover's lament about being ignored and beaten down by an unreceptive partner. Despite the despairing tone, it's got a bright sing-song melody that makes the song less depressing than it probably needs to be. That's All is the best tune on the album, but Phil's voice is strongest on House by the Sea, whose lyrics are, however, too stream of consciousness to make much sense. It might be about growing up and accepting adulthood, but it's unclear. At any rate, its second instrumental part puts the song more in focus for me, and Mike Banks gets to show off his virtuosic guitar skills, while Tom Rutherford washes the tracks over with dreamy synthesizers, and when Phil repeats the song's third verse at the end, it can give you chills. Illegal Alien is the most explicitly political song the group has yet recorded, and their funniest. The subject is supposed to be sad, a wetback trying to get across the border into the United States, but the details are highly comical. The bottle of tequila the Mexican holds, the new pair of shoes he's wearing, probably stolen, and it all seems totally accurate. Phil sings it in a brash, whiny, pseudo-Mexican voice that makes it even funnier, and the rhyme of fun with Illegal Alien is inspired. Just a Job to Do is the album's funkiest song, with a killer bass line by Banks, and though it seems to be about a detective chasing a criminal, I think it could also be about a jealous lover tracking someone down. Silver Rainbow is the album's most lyrical song. The words are intense, complex, and gorgeous. The album ends on a positive, upbeat note with "It's Gonna Get Better." Even if the lyrics seem a tiny bit generic to some, Phil's voice is so confident, heavily influenced by Peter Gabriel, who never made an album this polished and heartfelt himself, that he makes us believe in glorious possibilities. Invisible Touch, Atlantic 1986, is the group's undisputed masterpiece. It's an epic meditation on intangibility. At the same time, it deepens and enriches the meaning of the preceding three albums. It has a resonance that keeps coming back at the listener. And the music is so beautiful that it's almost impossible to shake off, because every song makes some connection about the unknown or the spaces between people. Invisible Touch, questioning authoritative control, whether by domineering lovers or by government. Land of Confusion, or by meaningless repetition. Tonight, tonight, tonight. All in all, it ranks with the finest rock and roll achievements of the decade, and the mastermind behind this album, along, of course, with the brilliant ensemble playing of Banks, Collins, and Rutherford, is Hugh Padgham, who was never found as clear and crisp and modern a sound as this. You can practically hear every nuance of every instrument. In terms of lyrical craftsmanship and sheer songwriting skills, this album hits a new peak of professionalism. Take the lyrics to Land of Confusion, in which a singer addresses the problem of abusive political authority. This is laid down with a groove funkier and blacker than anything Prince or Michael Jackson, or any other black artist of recent years for that matter, has come up with. Yet, as danceable as the album is, it also has a stripped-down urgency that not even the overrated Bruce Springsteen can equal. As an observer of love's failings, Collins beats out the boss again and again, reaching new heights of emotional honesty on In Too Deep, yet it also showcases Collins' clowny, prankish, unpredictable side. It's the most moving pop song of the 1980s about monogamy and commitment. Anything She Does, which echoes the Jay Giles Band's Centerfold, but is more spirited and energetic, starts off side 2, and after that the album reaches its peak with Domino, a two-part song. Part 1, In the Heat of the Night, is full of sharp, finely drawn images of despair, and it's paired with the last domino, which fights it with an expression of hope. This song is extremely uplifting. The lyrics are as positive and affirmative as anything I've heard in rock. Phil Collins' solo efforts seem to be more commercial and therefore more satisfying in a narrower way, especially No Jacket Required, and songs like In the Air Tonight and Against All Odds, though that song was overshadowed by the masterful movie from which it came, and Take Me Home, and Sussudio, great song, a personal favorite, and his remake of You Can't Hurry Love, which I'm not alone in thinking is better than the Supremes' original. But I also think that Phil Collins works better within the confines of the group than as a solo artist. And I stress the word artist. In fact, it applies to all three of the guys because Genesis is still the best, most exciting band to come out of England in the 1980s. Lunch. I'm sitting in Duplex, the new Tony McManus restaurant in Tribeca, with Christopher Armstrong, who also works at P&P. We went to Exeter together, then he went to the University of Pennsylvania in Wharton before moving to Manhattan. We inexplicably could not get reservations at Subjects, so Armstrong suggested this place. Armstrong is wearing a 4-button double-breasted chalk-striped spread-collar cotton shirt by Christian Dior and a large paisley-patterned silk tie by Givenchy Gentleman. His leather agenda and leather envelope, both by Bottega Veneta, lie on the third chair at our table, a good one, up front by the window. I'm wearing a nail-head pattern worsted wool suit with overplaid from de rigueur by Schoenemann, a cotton broadcloth shirt by Bill Blass, a Macclesfield silk tie by Savoy, and a cotton handkerchief by Ashier Brothers. A Muzak rendition of the score of Les Miserables plays lightly throughout the restaurant. Armstrong's girlfriend is Jodie Stafford, who used to date Todd Hamlin, and this fact, plus TV monitors hanging from the ceilings with closed-circuit video of chefs working in the kitchen, fills me with nameless dread. Armstrong just got back from the islands and has a very deep, very even tan, but so do I. So how are the Bahamas? I ask after we order. You just got back, right? Well, Taylor, Armstrong begins, staring at a point somewhere behind me and slightly above my head on the column that has been terracottaized, or perhaps on the exposed pipe that runs the length of the ceiling. Travelers looking for that perfect vacation this summer may do well to look south, as far south as the Bahamas and the Caribbean islands. There are at least 5 smart reasons for visiting the Caribbean, including the weather and the festivals and events, the less crowded hotels and attractions, the price, and the unique cultures. While many vacationers leave the cities in search of cooler climates during the summer months, few have realized that the Caribbean has a year-round climate of 75 to 85 degrees and that the islands are constantly cooled by the trade winds. It is frequently hotter north, and on the Patty Winters show this morning, the topic was toddler murderers. In the studio audience were parents of children who'd been kidnapped, tortured, and murdered, while on stage a panel of psychiatrists and pediatricians were trying to help them cope, somewhat futilely, I might add, and much to my delight, with their confusion and anger. But what really cracked me up was, via satellite, on a lone TV monitor, 3 convicted toddler murderers on death row who, due to fairly complicated legal loopholes, were now seeking parole and would probably get it. But something kept distracting me while I watched the huge Sony TV over a breakfast of sliced kiwi and Japanese apple pear, Evian water, oat bran muffins, soy milk, and cinnamon granola, ruining my enjoyment of the grieving mothers. And it wasn't until the show was almost over that I figured out what it was. The crack above my David Arnica that I had asked the doorman to tell the superintendent to fix. On my way out this morning, I stopped at the front desk, about to complain to the doorman, when I was confronted with a new doorman, my age, but balding and homely and fat. 3 glazed jelly donuts and 2 steaming cups of extra dark, hot chocolate lay on the desk in front of him, beside a copy of the Post, open to the comics, and it struck me that I was infinitely better looking, more successful and richer than this poor bastard would ever be. And so with a passing rush of sympathy, I smiled and nodded a curt, though not impolite, good morning, without lodging a complaint. "Oh, really?" I found myself saying loudly, completely uninterested, to Armstrong. Like the United States, it celebrates the summer months with festivals and special events, including music concerts, art exhibits, street fairs, and sporting tournaments, and because of the vast number of people traveling elsewhere, the islands are less crowded, allowing for better service and no lines when waiting to use that sailboat or dine in that restaurant. I mean, I think most people go to sample the culture, the food, the history. On the way to Wall Street this morning, due to gridlock, I had to get out of the company car and was walking down Fifth Avenue to find a subway station when I passed what I thought was a Halloween parade, which was disorienting, since I was fairly sure this was May. When I stopped on the corner of 16th Street and made a closer inspection, it turned out to be something called a gay pride parade, which made my stomach turn. Homosexuals proudly marched down Fifth Avenue, pink triangles emblazoned on pastel-colored windbreakers, some even holding hands, most singing Somewhere, out of key, and in unison. I stood in front of Paul Smith and watched with a certain traumatized fascination, my mind reeling with the concept that a human being, a man, could feel pride over sodomizing another man. But when I began to receive fey catcalls from aging, over-muscled beach boys with walrus-like mustaches, in between the lines, "There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us," I sprinted over to 6th Avenue, decided to be late for the office, and took a cab back to my apartment, where I put on a new suit by Cerruti 1881, gave myself a pedicure, and tortured to death a small dog I had bought earlier this week in a pet store on Lexington. Armstrong drones on. Water sports are, of course, the leading attraction, but golf courses and tennis courts are in excellent condition, and the pros at many of the resorts are made more available during the summer. Many of the courts are lit for night playing as well. Fuck yourself, Armstrong, I'm thinking, while staring out the window at the gridlock and pacing bums on Church Street. Appetizers arrive. Sun-dried tomato brioche for Armstrong, poblano chilies with an oniony orange-purple marmalade on the side for me. I hope Armstrong doesn't want to pay, because I need to show the dim-witted bastard that, in fact, I do own a Platinum American Express card. I feel very sad at this moment, for some reason, listening to Armstrong, and a lump forms in my throat, but I swallow and take a sip from my Corona. And the emotion passes, and during a pause while he's chewing, I ask, "The food? How's the food?" Almost involuntarily, thinking about anything but. Good question. As for dining out, the Caribbean has become more attractive as the island cuisine has mixed well with the European culture. Many of the restaurants are owned and managed by Americans, British, French, Italian, even Dutch expatriates. Mercifully, he pauses, taking a bite out of his brioche, which looks like a sponge drenched in blood. His brioche looks like a big, bloody sponge, and he washes it down with a sip from his Corona. My turn. "How about sightseeing?" I asked disinterestedly, concentrating on the blackened chilies, the yellowish marmalade circling the plate in an artful octagon, cilantro leaves circling the marmalade, chili seeds circling the cilantro leaves. Sightseeing is highlighted by the European culture, which established many of the islands as regional fortresses in the 1700s. Visitors can see the various spots where Columbus landed, and, as we near the 300th anniversary of his first sailing in 1590, there is a heightened awareness in the islands as to the history and culture that is an integral part of island life. Armstrong, you are an asshole. Uh-huh, I nod. Well, paisley ties, plaid suits, my aerobics class, returning videotapes, spices to pick up from Zabar's, beggars, white chocolate truffles. The sickening scent of Dracar Noir, which is what Christopher is wearing, floats over near my face, mingling with the scent of the marmalade and cilantro, the onions and the blackened chilies. Uh-huh, I say, repeat. And for the active vacationer, there is mountain climbing, cave exploring, sailing, horseback riding, and whitewater river rafting. And for the gamblers, there are casinos on many of the islands. Fleetingly, I imagined pulling out my knife, slicing a wrist, one of mine, aiming the spurting vein at Armstrong's head, or better yet his suit, wondering if he would still continue to talk. I considered getting up without excusing myself, taking a cab to another restaurant, somewhere in Soho, maybe farther uptown, having a drink, using the restroom, maybe even making a phone call to Evelyn, coming back to Duplex, and every molecule that makes up my body tells me that Armstrong would still be talking about not only his vacation, but what seems like the world's vacation in the fucking Bahamas. Somewhere along the line, the waiter removes half-eaten appetizers, brings fresh Coronas, free-range chicken with raspberry vinegar and guacamole, calf's liver with shad roe and leeks, and though I'm not sure who ordered what, it doesn't really matter since both plates look exactly the same. I end up with the free-range chicken with extra tomatillo sauce, I think. Visitors to the Caribbean don't need a passport, just proof of U.S. citizenship. And even better, Taylor, is that language is no barrier. English is spoken everywhere, even on those islands where the local language is French or Spanish. Most of the islands are former British. My life is a living hell, I mention off the cuff, while casually moving leeks around on my plate, which, by the way, is a porcelain triangle. And there are many more people I want to, well, I guess, murder. I say this emphasizing the last word, staring straight into Armstrong's face. Service has improved to the islands as both American Airlines and Eastern Airlines have created hubs in San Juan, where they have set up connecting flights to those islands they don't serve with direct flights. With additional service from BWIA, Pan Am, ALM, Air Jamaica, Bahamas Air, and Cayman Airways, most islands are easy to reach. There are additional connections within the islands from LIAT and BWIA, which provide a series of scheduled island-hopping flights. Someone who I think is Charles Fletcher walks over while Armstrong keeps talking, and he pats me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Simpson," and "See you at Flutie's." And then, at the door, meets up with a very attractive woman. Big tits, blonde, tight dress, not his secretary, not his wife. And they leave duplex together in a black limousine. Armstrong is still eating, cutting into the perfectly square slices of calf's liver, and he keeps talking while I become increasingly mournful. Vacationers who can't take a full week away will find the Caribbean an ideal spot for the alternative weekend escape. Eastern Airlines has created its Weekender Club, which includes many Caribbean destinations and enables members to visit many places at sharply reduced prices, which I know doesn't matter. But I still think people are going. Concert. Everyone is very uptight at the concert Carruthers drags us to in New Jersey this evening. An Irish band called U2, who were on the cover of Time last week. The tickets were originally for a group of Japanese clients who canceled their trip to New York at the last minute, making it virtually impossible for Carruthers, or so he says, to sell these front-row seats. So it's Carruthers and Courtney, Paul Owen and Ashley Cromwell, and Evelyn and myself. Earlier, when I found out that Paul Owen was coming, I tried to call Cecilia Wagner, Marcus Halberstam's girlfriend, since Paul Owen seems fairly sure that I'm Marcus, and though she was flattered by my invitation, I always suspected I was one of her crushes. She had to attend a black tie party for the opening of the new British musical, Maggie. But she did mention something about lunch next week, and I told her I would give her a call on Thursday. I was supposed to have dinner with Evelyn tonight, but the thought of sitting alone with her during a 2-hour meal fills me with a nameless dread, and so I call and reluctantly explain the schedule changes. And she asks if Tim Price is coming. When I tell her no, there is the briefest hesitation before she accepts, and then I cancel the reservation Jean made for us at H2O, the new Clive Powell restaurant in Chelsea, and leave the office early for a quick aerobics class before the concert. None of the girls are particularly excited about seeing the band, and all have confided in me separately that they don't want to be here. And in the limousine heading towards somewhere called the Meadowlands, Carruthers keeps trying to placate everyone by telling us that Donald Trump is a big U2 fan, and then, even more desperately, that John Gutfreund also buys their records. A bottle of Cristal is opened, then another. The TV is tuned to a press conference Reagan's giving, but there's a lot of static and no one pays attention, except for me. The Patty Winters show this morning was about shark attack victims. Paul Owen has called me Marcus 4 times, and Evelyn, much to my relief, Cecilia, twice. But Evelyn doesn't notice, since she's been glaring at Courtney the entire time we've been in the limousine. Anyway, no one has corrected Owen, and it's unlikely that anyone will. I even called her Cecilia a couple of times myself, when I was sure she wasn't listening, while she was staring hatefully at Courtney. Carruthers keeps telling me how nice I look and complimenting my suit.
Track 4.
Evelyn and I are by far the best-dressed couple. I'm wearing a lamb's wool topcoat, a wool jacket with wool flannel trousers, a cotton shirt, a cashmere V-neck sweater, and a silk tie, all from Armani. Evelyn's wearing a cotton blouse by Dolce & Gabbana, suede shoes by Yves Saint Laurent, a stenciled calf skirt by Adrienne Landau, with a suede belt by Jill Stewart, Calvin Klein tights, Venetian glass earrings by Frances Paticki Stein, and clasped in her hand is a single white rose that I bought at a Korean deli before Carruthers' limousine picked me up. Carruthers is wearing a lamb's wool sport coat, a cashmere vicuña cardigan sweater, cavalry twilled trousers, a cotton shirt, and a silk tie, all from Hermes. "How tacky," Evelyn whispered to me. I silently agreed. Courtney is wearing a triple-layered silk organdy top and a long velvet skirt with a fishtail hem, velvet ribbon, and enamel earrings by Jose and Maria Barrera, gloves by Portolano, and shoes from Gucci. Paul and Ashley are, I think, a bit overdressed, and she has sunglasses on, even though the windows in the limo are tinted, and it's already dusk. She holds a small bouquet of flowers, daisies, Carruthers gave her, which failed to make Courtney jealous since she seems intent upon clawing Evelyn's face open, which right now, though it's the better-looking face, seems not a bad idea, and one I wouldn't mind watching Courtney carry out. Courtney has a slightly better body. Evelyn nicer tits. The concert has been dragging on now for maybe 20 minutes. I hate live music. But everyone around us is standing, their screams of approval competing with the racket coming from the towering walls of speakers stacked over us. The only real pleasure I get from being here is seeing Scott and Ann Smiley 10 rows behind us, in shittier, though probably not less expensive seats. Carruthers changes seats with Evelyn to discuss business with me, but I can't hear a word, so I change seats with Evelyn to talk to Courtney. "Louis is a weasel," I shout. "He suspects nothing." "The Edge is wearing Armani," she shouts, pointing at the bassist. "That's not Armani," I shout back. "It's Emporio." "No," she shouts. "Armani." The grays are too muted, and so are the taupes and navies. Definite winged lapels, subtle plaids, polka dots, and stripes are Armani, not Emporio, I shout, extremely irritated that she doesn't know this, can't differentiate, both my hands covering both ears. "There's a difference. Which one's the ledge?" "The drummer might be the ledge," she shouts. "I think. I'm not sure. I need a cigarette." "Where were you the other night?" "If you tell me with Evelyn, I'm going to hit you." "The drummer is not wearing anything by Armani," I scream. "Or Emporio, for that matter. Nowhere." "I don't know which one the drummer is," she shouts. "Ask Ashley," I suggest, screaming. "Ashley?" she screams, reaching over across Paul and tapping Ashley's leg. "Which one's the ledge?" Ashley shouts something at her that I can't hear, and then Courtney turns back to me, shrugging. "She said she can't believe she's in New Jersey." Carruthers motions for Courtney to change seats with him. She waves a little twit away and grips my thigh, which I flex rock hard, and her hand lingers admiringly. But Louis persists, and she gets up and screams at me, "I think we need drugs tonight." I nod. The lead singer, Bono, is screeching out what sounds like, "Where the beat sounds the same." Evelyn and Ashley leave to buy cigarettes, use the ladies' room, find refreshments. Louis sits next to me. "The girls are bored," Louis screams at me. "Courtney wants us to find her some cocaine tonight," I shout. "Oh, great!" Louis looks sulky. "Do we have reservations anywhere?" "Brussels," he shouts, checking his Rolex. "But it's doubtful if we'll make it." "If we don't make it," I warn him, "I'm not going anywhere else. You can drop me at my apartment." "We'll make it," he shouts. "If we don't, what about Japanese? I suggest, relenting. There's a really top sushi bar on the Upper West Side. Blades. Chef used to be at Iso. It got a great rating in Zagat. Bateman! I hate the Japanese! Carruthers screams at me, one hand placed over an ear. Little slanty-eyed bastards! What? I scream. In the hell are you talking about? Oh, I know, he screams, eyes bulging. They save more than we do, and they don't innovate much. But they sure in the fuck know how to steal, take our innovations, improve on them, then ram them down our fucking throats. I stare at him, disbelieving for a moment, then look at the stage, at the guitarist running around in circles, Bono's arms outstretched, as he runs back and forth across the length of its edge, and then back at Lewis, whose face is still crimson with fury, and he's still staring at me, wide-eyed, spittle on his lips, not saying anything. What in the hell does it have to do with Blades? I ask finally, genuinely confused. Wipe your mouth. That's why I hate Japanese food, he screams back. Sashimi, California roll, oh, Jesus. He makes a gagging motion, with one finger going down his throat. Carruthers! I stop, still looking at him, studying his face closely, slightly freaked out, unable to remember what I wanted to say. What, Bateman? Carruthers asks, leaning in. Listen, I can't believe this shit, I scream. I can't believe you didn't make the reservations for later. We're going to have to wait. What? He screams,